Rather than seeing the world in the immediate aftermath of Thanos' attack, Avengers 4 might take us back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe 5 years into the new status quo. Is the latest rumor true? Let's break down the possibilities. One possible confirmation of the 5-year time jump rumor comes thanks to the movie's casting. While Scott Lang's daughter Cassie has been played thus far by Abby Ryder Fortson in the 2 Ant-Man films, the superhero daughter could be growing up fast, suspiciously fast. In April 2018, just before the release of Infinity War, news leaked that Marvel had cast a new actress, Emma Fuhrmann, as Cassie for Avengers 4. On its own, this isn't huge news. The MCU has recast roles before, but Fuhrmann happens to be 7 years older than her predecessor in the role. That's a big jump, all but confirming that this story plans on aging Cassie quickly. It's a fairly abrupt shift, considering the younger actress just played the role in Ant-Man and the Wasp, which takes place during the events of Infinity War. If the sequel starts where Avengers 3 left off, then why would they need such an older performer? Add in a time jump and it all makes sense. So what would a 5-year gap between the 2 Avengers sequels mean for the story? For one thing, we'd get a serious look at how people have adjusted to half of the universe being gone. While grief can last for a lifetime, 5 years is a long time to get over some initial shock. This way, we'd actually see the lasting effects of the Avengers' devastating loss. Lots of rumors about the movie revolve around beating Thanos with time travel, which sounds like the smart move. But what would the ethical implications be of erasing years of experience from the Infinity War survivors, years after the universe has begun to move on? It could throw a wrench into the Avengers' plans for fixing things. Aside from Thanos himself, the most important character in Infinity War is arguably Tony Stark. The movie begins with him and Pepper talking about the future, thinking about having a child, and contemplating retirement. But retirement looks a lot different when your last battle ends in your biggest loss. We don't know if Pepper survived the snap, but if she did, it's possible that the couple could have moved on from Infinity War by having a child. If the movie starts 5 years after the war, then Tony would face a devastating decision. What if saving the universe meant giving up his kid? Would he really sacrifice his own flesh and blood just to pal around with Peter Parker again? Well, Aunt May maybe, but Pete? While we really don't know where Avengers 4 is going, there have been enough set leaks to give us some huge clues. For months, we've seen photos of the production apparently shooting a new version of the Avengers climactic battle of New York, with old costumes and hairstyles on set, further affirming that we've seen some of this before. How they do it, we don't know. But unless Marvel is playing 11-dimensional chess and leaking monumental misdirection, it's almost definitely going to happen. The idea of a 5-year time jump adds some fuel to the time travel argument. After all, if the movie involves time travel, then who cares what time it is when the story starts? It could be 5 years into the future or 50 years, and all still end happily on the same day the Infinity War started. Think Back to the Future, think Terminator. As soon as going back in time is on the table, all the problems of a time jump can be undone just like that. After sitting out Infinity War, Avengers 4 will finally see the return of Clint Barton, but not necessarily Hawkeye. At this point, it's all but certain that Jeremy Renner will be coming back as Ronin, a samurai-inspired character whose mantle has been taken up by quite a few people in the comics, including Hawkeye. Hawkeye sat out Infinity War while living under house arrest with his loving family following the events of Civil War. But what if Thanos' attack destroyed his family? Would the snap make Hawkeye snap? We think so, and we think it's going to be awesome. A 5-year gap and a family in the fridge would provide a perfect cover for the development and re-emergence of a completely retooled Barton. After all, the man really just wants to be with his family, right? Not only would a time jump give him space to train in the ways of the samurai, the loss of his loved ones could also turn him into a lawless badass with nothing to lose. Back in action as an Avenger, but for real now. If this is how it happens, he'd need a little time to develop that new persona. If the 5-year rumor is true, the timeline could fit. To us, this time jump rumor is pretty compelling, but there's one aspect about the theory that gives us pause. One thing Infinity War lacked during its 2.5-hour runtime was a proper reunion between Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. The last time the two were in the same room, they were more or less trying to murder each other. And that was way back in 2016. By the time Infinity War rolled around, Stark was still reluctant to pick up the phone and make the call to his friend from work. By the end of the movie, they've both lost, and they still haven't reunited. The problem with a 5-year time jump is simple. Audiences want to see Steve and Tony hug it out. Would they really skip such an anticipated reunion by starting the movie in the future? Or would the two somehow still be avoiding each other 5 years later? You can't jump that far into the future and tell us Captain America and Iron Man haven't made up yet, can you? It's like, grow up guys, the world is ruined. have a beer and talk it out. It is possible that the two heroes could avoid each other for 5 whole years. Or maybe the movie skips ahead 5 years later after Tony returns to Earth and Tony and Cap have regrouped. One way or another, audiences need that scene. Would a time jump really deny it to us? Maybe. But knowing these movies, it might end up being worth it no matter how things actually go down. We'll see what happens when Avengers 4 lands in 2019.